My daughter looked 200 people in the eye and called me our old neighbor. Not Dad, not even Frank, just Frank, our old neighbor. She smiled when she said it. That was the part I couldn't get past. She smiled like she was introducing the man who occasionally fixed a fence or mowed the lawn. I stood there in a rented navy suit, holding a glass of sparkling water, and said nothing, because I already knew something she didn't. Something that was about to walk into that ballroom and change everything. My name is Frank Delacroix. I'm 64 years old, and I spent 31 years working as a structural engineer in Asheville, North Carolina. I built the house on Belhaven Street with my own hands in 1998. Carol and I moved into that house 6 months before our daughter, Renee, was born. For years, I believed that if you quietly did the right thing, eventually somebody would notice. I was wrong. At least I was wrong about who would notice first. Carol left me in 2009. Renee was 12. Carol had met a man named Gerald Whitfield, a wealthy investment manager with a lake house, a boat, and everything I couldn't give them. When Carol left, Renee went with her. I could have fought for custody. My lawyer told me I had a good chance, but Renee was 12, frightened, and already being pulled between two worlds. So I made the decision I thought would hurt her least. I let her go. I told myself that losing her would hurt me, but fighting for her might hurt her more. I was wrong. It hurt both of us. For the next 17 years, I watched my daughter grow up from a distance. Every other weekend became every other month. Every other month became holidays. Eventually, I became the man she called Frank. Gerald became Dad, and I became the old neighbor from Belhaven Street, but there was something none of them knew. When Renee started nursing school at Western Carolina in 2015, the tuition was around $11,000 a semester. Gerald told her college was a chance to learn financial independence. Then Renee called me crying. She didn't ask me for money, she just needed someone to listen. The next morning, I called my old attorney, Tom Ashby. We created the Belhaven Family Trust. I funded it with my savings and money I'd inherited from my father. For 4 years, that trust quietly paid Renee's tuition. It paid for her books. When her car died, it helped her buy a used Honda Civic. When she moved to Asheville for work, it paid the deposit on her apartment. Every payment went directly where it needed to go. And every time I told Tom, don't let her know it's me. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. I didn't want Renee to feel like she owed me anything. I didn't want her to feel forced to choose between me and Gerald. Most of all, I didn't think a father should demand credit for loving his daughter. I didn't understand then that silence can sometimes become its own kind of lie. Then Renee met Marcus Coleman. Marcus was 31, an orthopedic surgeon, intelligent, calm, and observant. The first time I met him, he shook my hand and asked about the house I'd built. Later, he spent nearly 40 minutes in my garage asking about the engineering behind my back deck. He wasn't pretending to be interested. He genuinely was. I liked him immediately. Over the next year, I saw him several more times. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that maybe my relationship with Renee was changing. Then they got engaged. The wedding was held at a beautiful restored barn outside Hendersonville. There were around 200 guests, string lights, white flowers, a quartet playing near the entrance. Renee looked beautiful. For one moment, watching her walk down that aisle, I didn't see the 29-year-old bride. I saw the little girl who used to fall asleep on my shoulder. I sat near the back with Rosa Alvarez, my longtime neighbor. Rosa had been there during the years when I couldn't. When I worked late, Rosa fed Renee dinner. When Renee was sick, Rosa stayed with her. She was more than a neighbor. She had helped raise my daughter. The reception began beautifully. Gerald gave a long speech. He talked about teaching Renee to sail. He talked about college. He called himself her father several times. Then Carol spoke. She thanked Gerald for being the father Renee needed. I stayed silent. Then Renee took the microphone. She thanked her mother. She thanked Gerald, and then her eyes found me. She smiled. And of course, she said, our old neighbor Frank is here tonight too. He used to fix things around our old house on Belhaven. Thank you for coming, Frank. The room laughed softly, not cruelly. That almost made it worse. They laughed because they thought it was harmless. I sat there holding my glass. Rosa reached under the table and squeezed my hand. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I simply felt hollow. 17 years, 4 years of tuition, the car, the apartment, the birthdays. The missed weekends, and in front of 200 people, I was just the old neighbor. I was about to leave when Marcus stood up. It was time for the groom's toast. He walked toward the microphone. He thanked everyone for coming, he thanked his parents, he spoke about his late father, everything sounded normal, then he stopped. He placed his notes on the table and looked directly at me. There is something I need to say before I finish. The room became quiet. Renee looked at him. Marcus continued. Earlier tonight, Renee introduced a man as her old neighbor. Nobody moved. I didn't correct her because I didn't want to interrupt her toast. He paused, but I've spent the last few weeks learning something about that man. He looked at Renee. And I think you deserve to know the truth. Renee's smile disappeared. Marcus said, Renee, the man you called your old neighbor tonight is your father. A gasp moved through the room. Marcus continued, your biological father, Frank Delacroix. I watched Renee's face change, confusion, disbelief, then fear. Marcus wasn't finished. The man who paid for your nursing degree wasn't Gerald. Gerald suddenly stood completely still. It was Frank. The room went silent. Every semester, every book. The car you used during your clinical year, the deposit on your first apartment. Marcus looked at Renee. All of it came through a trust Frank created because he didn't want you to feel like you owed him anything. Renee stared at me. Marcus told them how he had discovered the trust while helping Renee with her financial paperwork. He told them how he had traced the payments. Then he told them something I had never expected him to reveal. I went to Frank's house, Marcus said. I confronted him. He looked at me. And he didn't boast about any of it. Marcus's voice became softer. He told me he kept it secret because he loved his daughter and didn't want her caught in the middle. Then he turned toward Renee. But I couldn't watch you thank the wrong man for everything your father had done. Nobody spoke. Marcus looked at me and said, quiet isn't kind if she grows up thanking the wrong man. Those words hit me harder than anything else that night. I slowly stood. I walked toward the microphone. I didn't take it from Marcus, I simply stood beside him. Then I looked at my daughter. I never wanted credit, I said. I paid for your school because you're my daughter. That's what a father does. Renee's eyes filled with tears. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I swallowed. But maybe I made a mistake. I thought silence was protecting you. I didn't realize silence could make you forget me. Renee covered her mouth. Then she whispered something I hadn't heard her say in 17 years. Dad, just one word, but it broke something open inside me. Gerald left the room. Carol followed him. Nobody stopped them. But I wasn't watching them, I was watching Renee. She walked across the ballroom in her wedding dress. She came straight toward me. Then she stopped. She didn't hug me immediately. Instead, she asked, why didn't you tell me? I told her the truth. Because I was afraid you'd think I was trying to buy your love. She started crying. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I thought Gerald paid for everything. I know, she looked down, I called you our old neighbor. I know, I was horrible. I shook my head. You were 12 when this started, Renee. You didn't choose any of this. Then something happened that I will remember for the rest of my life. Renee turned away from me and walked toward Rosa. She knelt in front of her. Rosa, she said through tears, you took care of me when I was sick. You fed me when Dad was working. You were there when I needed someone. Rosa started crying. And I haven't called you in over a year. Renee took her hands. I'm sorry. That was when I finally cried, not when Marcus exposed the truth, not when Renee called me Dad, right there. Watching my daughter finally understand who had actually been there for her. The wedding didn't magically fix 17 years. Real life doesn't work that way, but it changed something, permanently. After the wedding, Renee began visiting me every Sunday. She started calling me Dad again, not Frank, not our old neighbor. Dad. Marcus became like the son I never had. He would call me about problems with their house. I'd show up with my old tools. We'd spend Saturday mornings fixing things together, and Rosa became part of their family too. Renee picked her up for Sunday dinner almost every week. Months later, I sat down with Tom Ashby and changed the Belhaven Family Trust. It wasn't a secret anymore. I turned it into a scholarship for nursing students who couldn't afford school, and I named it after Rosa, the Rosa Alvarez Nursing Scholarship. Because she had spent years caring for my daughter without asking for anything, I also paid off Rosa's house. This time there was no secret, no hidden trust, no anonymous payment. Her name was on everything. I had spent 17 years believing that love meant giving quietly. I understand now that sometimes love also means allowing someone to know what you've done for them. Not because you need praise, but because people deserve to know who stood beside them when they weren't looking. I'm 64 now. I still live on Belhaven Street. The house I built in 1998 is still standing, but my daughter no longer calls it her old home. Sometimes she comes over and walks through the front door without knocking. She reaches for the salt at dinner without asking, just like she did when she was 6, and every time she does, I remember that little girl, not the bride who called me her old neighbor. Not the woman who forgot, the daughter I never stopped loving. And now, when she introduces me to people, she doesn't say I'm Frank, she doesn't say I'm her old neighbor. She simply smiles and says, "This is my dad," and after 17 years of silence, that's all the recognition I ever needed.